I'm Professor Helen Cross, the Prince of Wales Chair of Childhood Epilepsy at UCL Great Ormond Street Institute of Child Health, London, UK. The session that I was facilitating was hearing from speakers about diseases that may have parallels with epilepsy associated with hypothalamic hamartoma and the comorbidities seen. Initially, we heard about genetic pathways in brain tumours and how that's really enhanced our understanding of how we may treat brain tumours in general. And although at the present time there isn't much of a corollary, essentially we know that there are genetic mutations in tissue in hypothalamic hamartoma, and if we can approach tackling the pathways for which they code, maybe we can rethink the way we approach treatments in conditions associated with hypothalamic hamartoma. We also heard about another condition where this has been done, namely tuberous sclerosis, where a better understanding of the pathway that has really gone wrong in tuberous sclerosis, a condition that, yes, causes brain lesions and epilepsy, as well as problems with other organs in the body. Essentially, knowing the pathway and inhibiting that pathway has led to better treatments of the abnormalities seen and also the epilepsy. This means that in the future it may be with a better understanding of the genetics of hypothalamic hamartoma, we can think about a new approach to treatment. We also heard about other epileptic encephalopathies. Epileptic encephalopathy is when we think the epilepsy itself is contributing to the underlying behaviour and learning problems in children over and above the underlying cause in itself. And certainly from studies that were presented by Dr. Suki Ko, both in humans and looking at tissue and also looking at animal studies, she looked at the approach that inflammation, and that means where there is a reaction in the tissue to seizures and the original insult, may be perpetuating seizures in the future, and that gives us another insight into how we may treat the epilepsy. And also, she demonstrated quite nicely in her animal models that the environment that the animals were in, namely if they were in an enriched environment with lots of playmates as opposed to in isolation, that also reduced the perpetuation of any inflammation seen, but also the seizures themselves, showing that maybe we need parallel approaches, both tackling the underlying disease and epilepsy, but also behavioural approaches in order to help improve outcomes in the future. Finally, we also heard about hypothalamic obesity. Is it a pre-surgical issue? Is this just seen post-surgical? And it was quite clear from what Dr. Roth presented that we may see this pre as well as post-operatively. It's not all the surgery that may cause this, and he discussed other approaches that may be thought of in the future to try and help that. In the short term, I think the research that was the corollaries that were actually presented with other disease states suggests that parallel approaches, not just treating the seizures, treating the underlying conditions medically, but also looking at behavioural approaches, what environments that the individual children are in, or the approach to them, particularly with regards to the behaviour, can go along, as I said, in parallel in order to help manage the children. But that aside, in the longer term, I think there's quite a degree of excitement. This isn't something that's going to be seen in the short term, but in the longer term, with a better understanding of the genetics of the lesion itself, the abnormality itself, may lead to different approaches to the treatment and maybe make better inroads into the outcomes in these children. I think the benefits of an international research symposium such as this are that it brings together individuals who deal more commonly with very rare disease, and also has brought together individuals from outside this disease area, as well as to do with the basic anatomy and pathophysiology of the hypothalamus itself, in order that we can think about how we approach the disease in the future. It means that we can look in other areas to what we may be looking at with regard to the medical side and see what we can bring to the approach to these individuals with hypothalamic hamartoma in assessing and managing them in the future.